I think the interesting aspect about it is that in corporates we tend to organize D&I events.
Yeah.
Let's have a D&I day for this group.
Yeah.
Right, and then you organize a whole day or a week around that group.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas the Culture Lab, if I understand it well, is more an event. You bring different people together of different thoughts, etc.
Yeah.
And that event happens to be extremely diverse and inclusive.
All the time.
Yeah.
365 days in a year, and it ran for 10 years. So it's more a mindset. It's more like how can you create, how can you live in this idea space all the time.
Yeah.
We are constantly learning, constantly examining, constantly recontextualizing. And I have no problem with organizations that do specific days and events. I write about it in my book. I'm all for celebrating days and events, but I think those should come at the end point of a lot of work which has already been done. So if you've changed your policies, hired enough people, worked with community organizations, built enough credibility, and you've done all of that, then by all means do an event, give people rainbow cupcakes, put it on Instagram, change your logo. All that should be at the end of it. I have a problem with organizations who do what is called performative inclusion or whatever. I have a problem with who do this in the beginning and then think that is their world, your role is over. No, Baba, that comes at the end. That is the end point. Many companies do it as a starting point and say, okay, very inclusive, but if you look at them, actually they've done nothing.
So that's it. That's what I took away when I was reading around the Culture Lab. What got me to thinking is, instead of organizing, again, D&I events, a Women's Day, a Men's Day, a Pride's Day, this is great and probably we should do, but maybe we need to, in our other events, bring more diversity and inclusion all the time throughout the year, rather than just having one day. And I think the Culture Lab is maybe an inspiration for that.
Yeah, Culture Lab certainly helped Godrej to think of these things in ways, because our organizations are full of people. People come from society. I mean, what is the funnel in which people enter organizations, right? People come into organizations like ours out of extreme privilege. So people in organizations are all, in a sense, looking, sounding, etc. like each other, despite our best efforts being made through D&I. So how do people get to realize that there are multiple worlds outside that we need to bring in for the future benefit of our own organization?
Another interesting thing is when you joined, one of the first things that you did in Godrej was to change the anti-discrimination policy. Which I think is an amazing step. Right? But we need to do more than that. Right? When changing the policy is great, but if you have an organization with thousands of people, of course the whole culture needs to change. So how did you use that policy as a platform, and which actions did you take to really start changing the culture in Godrej to be more inclusive?
So I did whatever I could, wherever I could. I embedded myself everywhere. So I was and with complete openness and honesty. I told all my Godrej colleagues, I'm here to change the world. I'm just using you as a platform. So I'm here to hire more queer people, to create a more inclusive world. So wherever I could, I grabbed it. So recruitment, Godrej recruits thousands of people every year from MBA colleges. I just grabbed it and became part of the recruitment thing, which meant that every year I would go to 12 to 14 MBA colleges and I would talk at all of them. And of course it's me, so my pitch would be 40 minutes of, this is LGBTQ rights in India, this is what is important, and 5 minutes of, by the way, you should join Godrej. And it worked. Because people saw that I care about something, more people would join us because they believe that there's someone here who cares about something, right? So I think if you want to bring about change, you have to. So the term I use in the book is Jugaad resistance. So Jugaad is, of course, our Indian adaptability, creativity, cleverness, resourcefulness, frugality, doing more with whatever cards life has dealt you. And resistance is just resistance, actively resisting ways in which things are done, asking why questions. Why are we doing it this way? Why can't we do it this way? Let me try it. If it fails, the blame is mine. If it succeeds, it was your baby. And each of us have the power to resist. And in wherever we are located and whatever we do. And you don't have to be an activist on the street or a lawyer in the court to resist. You can resist in any organization, doing whatever function you can do. So one of the things, for example, So I also got involved in conference organizing, doing our senior leadership conference. And wherever I could, right from the curation of speakers, right? Who are the speakers people tend to call by? So for example, one year we decided, because there's so many manuals that happen all around, right? Even on the flight here, I was reading this, Mint, this newspaper, and there's a full page ad about a banking conference in India.
Yes,
and there's some 50 men on it. I mean, to imagine that they couldn't find one woman for a banking conference, I mean, it's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So how do you resist? If you're the conference organizer, I don't know how that curation went past them, but also who released that ad? Because, is no one looking at it and saying, guys, because it must be mostly guys, we will look dumb if we release this ad, right? But I'm saying, so wherever you can. So we curated, for example, a conference one year where every speaker was a woman. Like the 20 speakers, they were all women. And of course, for a leadership which is mostly men, this was the first time they noticed it, because no one notices when every speaker is mostly man, but like everyone notices every speaker is mostly a woman. Like, oh my God, and like, yes, this is in some worlds, this might also be possible.
Yeah.
And we started with Mona El-Tahawi, who was our first speaker, who is an Egyptian American writer and activist whom I love. And her first thing was, she's like, hello, Godrej senior leaders, I'm Mona, and I'm here to bleep, 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 the patriarchy. And that was her first thing.
She set the scene.
She set the scene, and it was trans women, it was women in hijabs, it was women on wheelchairs. It was like a range of women who spoke about their experiences, right? So I'm saying, if you're asking how, I think for anyone who's listening and wants to be part of the change, don't wait until you go up this value chain and someday you are like in Serge's place and then you can make it happen. Whoever is listening, whatever role you are doing, wherever you are, you have the power. Whatever is in charge, whatever you are responsible for, grab it and use it to make a difference. We all often have much more power than we realize.
But I need to challenge you a little bit there, if I can. Also.
Yeah.
Because you were reporting directly to Nisa Godrej.
Yeah.
Right? So the senior leader of the company.
Yeah.
Which is a certain privilege that you have.
Completely.
For sure.
All my unpopular things I would make her say. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what about queer people who are not yet in that type of role, who are more at the grassroots level? What are things that they could do? They're not going to organize a conference. What would be some things? Imagine that you are there. What would be things that you would start
doing? I think first, wherever you are located, I mean, if your primary aim is to like protect yourself and see, I think don't. So figure out your landscape, figure out where you're located and figure out what works and what doesn't, obviously. Needless to say, if you are queer talent, you need to work for companies which care for you. So look out for companies, do your research, you should only give your talent to companies that care for you and care for the world at large. We are moving into a society in which talent is not going to work for companies that abuse the environment, don't care about human rights, don't believe in like well-being, physical health, mental health of the employees. These kind of companies are not going to attract the best talent. So my first thing is, if you're queer, please gravitate towards, if you can, companies in which are really, really looking out for you, and use your position. Again, of course, I had access, and of course, that made things easier. But it's not to say that a lot of the stories that I write about in this book, for example, are by change agents who did not have the access that I had, but they also made a difference. And I think a key thing here is in finding yourself allies. And I think a key thing for people listening is, especially if they happen to be straight and well-meaning, is to be allies. Because often to bring about the change in organizations, it is very difficult, and it's also, I think, unfair to ask the minority group to do the explaining, to do the heavy lifting, to do the pleas for change, to implement and execute the change, to be responsible for it later, and then be told this was a stretch role, none of this goes into your goal sheet or whatever. Yeah. So if you are an ally, I think it's very important for you to support the well-meaning, queer people, disabled people, the multiple minorities which are part of your organization, and do some of that heavy lifting. And there's multiple things. For example, in one of our conferences, we decided that, I'm sure y'all do conferences as well, y'all give gifts at the end of it. What gifts can you give? Now, the CEO does not decide this. Someone who is part of some HR team is deciding this, right? So you can empower your teams to say, take calls. So we decided that all our gifts would be made by a collective called Chamar Project, which is artisans from the Chamar community, which is a less privileged community in India in terms of the caste hierarchy, whose livelihoods were threatened because of the beef ban in the country that came some years ago. So these are leather artisans who were not able to find jobs. So the Chamar Project reskilled the artisans into working with recycled old rubber tires. So suddenly now they have skills in working with sustainability and recyclability, making incredible products. So we gave the entire gift order to Chamar Project. It was a couple of lakhs, because of which Chamar Project artisans could buy sewing machines, because of which they could produce more products and so on. So I'm saying you don't have to be MD. You can be wherever you are. If you have a 50,000 budget, how are you spending it? And you don't always have to ask for permission when you're doing something different. You can just say, I did it. Now, you have a problem, mostly people will, okay, good, right? I mean, if someone at a high level is actually asking you how you spend 30,000 or 40,000 rupees, why are they at the high level? Shouldn't they be thinking of like crores and like the future direction of the company instead of bothering about these small things? So, I mean, I think wherever you are located in the company, you have immense power, you have immense access, you have immense an ability to bring about change. Use it, don't waste it.
Great point. Two key takeaways I think there is that whatever level you are, speak up, find a way you can influence some kind of a decision or some kind of spend, right? And the second is have allies at the leadership.
And allies should recognize that their role is to help people.
That's it.
Right? And I think, I mean, of course, all of this is based on the fact that the organizational culture is one which empowers rather than censures. Needless to say. If every time you do something creative, if someone says, why did you do it? Why did you take 20 signs from me? I mean, you know, you're going to feel less inspired to do this the next time. Right? So you also have to create the culture both ways, saying, I'm empowering you. I want a gift. I trust you to buy a gift. And when you make a gift, then as a senior leader, I mean, your role is not to say, oh, why didn't we order a generic pen drive like everyone else? And why did we order this incredible thing? Your role is to shut up. Maybe you want a generic pen drive, but if someone has got something amazing, you say, that was really good. So I'm just saying, it works both ways, right? It works for employees.
But
it's also leadership. When you are empowering people, then they do good stuff. Then you say, bus, good. So it works both ways.
So let's take immediate action there. Because I think one of the key messages here is that we as ABIMB GCC want to be inclusive. Right? We're on this journey to be more diverse and more inclusive. I want to use this podcast as well to give a clear message to our employees and everybody else out there in India.
Millions of listeners.
That's it, millions of listeners after this episode for sure. We want to be extremely inclusive. So maybe just to make sure everybody there, let's look at all the viewers and the people here in the room, that if you have any ideas how we can become more inclusive to any type of group, LGBTQ, gender diversity or anything, let me know. I'm going to be an ally here together with my leadership team. So there you go. All right, good. So now you left Godrej, I think, recently. So I'm very, very curious what you're up to. You must be up to something. What are your plans for the future?
I'm planning a Bollywood debut. I want to be cast in Student of the Year 4.
No, for sure, need to sign.
I mean, Amir Khan could play a college student. No, I should die at the grey look, but no. What I'm doing is I'm doing a bunch of things. I've realized that I've just really enjoyed my life doing all these different things, and I want to just have some more time to myself. As I told Lisa when I decided to leave, we are moving from a closed relationship to a very open relationship, which means I'm just going to be a little more promiscuous. So I want to actually take a lot of the ideas and messages that I've been saying for the past decade, from within Bombay and Godrej to other organizations, and kind of help push and help create this infrastructures of possibilities that I was telling you about earlier. So which means I spend a couple of days every month consulting with or talking to a few organizations who I like. I spend a lot of time, joined 2 boards. I'm on the board of Khoj, which is an arts organization, and Breakthrough, which does incredible work to prevent gender-based violence against women. So I love working with their teams. I mentor so many other queer and non-queer organizations across the country. I'm thinking of my next book that I want to write. In jest, I'm thinking it should be called Straightistan after Queeristan. Just because, I just realized, and it's one of my biases, I don't know if I know that many straight people. So it might be nice to just, look at straight people and see, are they just like us queer people? Do they love their partners the same way? Do they feel happy? Do they laugh when they're happy? Just things like that. I just realized I don't know that much about straight people at all. So I thought it would be nice to write a book about straight people as an outsider, just seeing if, what commonalities they have with us and if they're different in any way. I'm just a jest, but I really want to do like something around that. But no, I'm thinking of which next book to write.
Okay.
And I'm also really thinking, I'm at this point where I want, I'm very open to the universe, I'm grateful. I'm just trying to, I've done a lot of coaching in the past. I've been coached in the past few years, and I'm just trying to figure out, my ikigai going ahead. Whereas, what do I offer to the world? What do I love?
Yeah.
And, what does the world need?
Yeah.
And if we can find a sweet spot. I do at some point want to have my own bow tie creation for sure, even if I sell 0 bow ties, because I love bow ties. So at some point I will have a bespoke bow tie collection that maybe 3 people will buy.
Yeah. For sure.
Thank you. I just want to be, I want to be, in the flow.
So exploring opportunities on how.
Yeah, I did a very small role in a Netflix series that we shot last year, which I think will be it's like a very small role with 2 scenes, and I play like a homophobic, very straight boss of someone, which I thought was, it was interesting to go against character in a law firm. So, let's see how that comes out. I'm just feeling, at this point, I'm just feeling very grateful. I'm thinking about how I can add value to the world in multiple ways. Yeah. And also thinking, a lot of my own personal giving and philanthropy over the years has been, I give to causes that need money the most. But I'm also strategically thinking of, what are the gaps, at least in the queer space, that I can more systematically give to, and set up, a more sustained philanthropic venture. So moving to the next phase of life.
Yes, good. So let's talk a little bit about how we can further improve LGBTQ inclusion.
Yeah.
And want to look at it from 3 angles. One is what can corporates do?
Yeah.
What can queer people themselves do? And what can employees basically do, right? To improve LGBTQ inclusion.
Yeah.
So if we start with corporates, first let's look outside. Look at pop culture. We see more and more LGBTQ everywhere. Is there a role there that corporates can play? Is there something we can learn from pop culture and use?
Corporates can do a lot with regard to pop culture. I mean, let's start with pop culture and then go back. But I think there's so much good, incredible content. Corporates have, a huge voice. Corporates make advertisements. Corporates do product placements in things. I think, there are incredible now companies and brands. Whether you look at some of the brands of, say, Hindustan Unilever, like Groupon, which is very much tied itself to the trans community, or Bhima Jewels, which is a jewelry company out of Kerala, which made a wonderful advertising film recently with a trans person, playing a trans person recently, which I think is actually quite amazing. So a lot of companies, and if you look, and I've written about this in Queeristan as well, even before, since 2009, so many companies have been using their voice through their brands, whether it's Tanishq, whether it's Fast Track, etc., right? To really, really speak up for the queer community by giving out powerful messages. So I think companies, in terms of embedding within popular culture, if you have a brand budget, really think about how It could be small tweaks. It could be and it doesn't have to be queer. It can be, you can really, through representation, really think about how everything that you sent out visually can reach out to and embrace various minority groups in its ambit. It could be a simple thing as making a character, in one of your pieces of communication, be on a wheelchair and for it to be very, very normal, or for one of the characters to be just organically queer without drawing that much. I mean, there's incredible ways in which you can, by showing things, either through advertising or through communication, just normalize the fact that society is made up of so many different people. So I mean, to answer that, and we're seeing that. I mean, we're seeing this in popular cinema, certainly Bollywood, whether it's Shandi Karkare Ashiki, whether it's Shubh Mangal before that, or Ek Ladki Ko Dekha. These are big Bollywood popular films, but also regional films like Muthan in Malayalam, or incredible Super Deluxe in Tamil, and so on. There's so many films which have come out over the years. Which talk about queer lives, in all their glory. So I think how do you empower communication like that is one. But to answer your question, what corporates can do, I think be structural, systematic, and focused on the long run. So I think to start with, any corporate that wants to enter this, invest in it over the long run, which means realize that you have to spend money. I was working at Godrej until recently. Before I left, we upped our diversity and inclusion budget by 6 times. So 600%, right? Not 6% or whatever, 6 times. Which means if it was 1 rupee, it is 6 rupees now. I think if you are really serious about being involved in inclusion, you have to spend money and invest. So you have to invest money, because you can't say I want to sensitize people without having money to sensitize them. You can't say I want to manage inclusion and then there will be, I talk to so many, which is I'm so glad that you actually have a dedicated D&I team here. Because in so many other organizations I go to, it's some well-meaning person, normally from a minority group. So if it's a woman, it's a stretch role. If it's the only queer person they will be doing D&I. If it's the one person who has a disability, they will be responsible for it. And that's not linked at all with their other things. So they're doing, it's not just tokenism, it's also extra burden on that person. And then you, at the end of the year, tell that person, we're not doing anything. How you can do anything if there's no money? So what can...
There has to be a platform as well, no?
No, so you have to say, we are going to spend so many crores on inclusion. You spend so many crores on marketing, no? Because you want to sell your products. You want to be an inclusive organization, you have to spend so many crores on it. Where do you spend your money on? You hire people, you have dedicated D&I teams who have goals which are linked to the work they do. You don't make other people do this as extra burden. You decide, you change your policies, processes, etc. You work with the best consultants in the business, including whenever and wherever you can, people from the communities you want to serve. Which means if you want to serve LGBTQ people, work with LGBTQ people. You want to serve PWD, there's incredible people in that space. Reach out to them, work with them, sensitize your employees, go out and hire people you don't have to say there are some positions for which we will hire. Every position of yours is an open position and should attract the best talent from across. Link it to your leadership goals. This is something I talk about a lot. All over the world, people are doing it, whether it's Chipotle in the US, whether it's so many companies in India which are talking about it. All senior leaders are having, just like their variable compensation is linked to other things, inclusion is very much a part of it, which means you work on targets, whether it's numbers, whether it's belonging scores, whatever it is with leaders, but what you commit to, then you hold them accountable for it, and if they cross it, you give them a bonus. If not, don't give them that bonus. So you create accountability within the organization then for that, right? I mean, in terms of that, so people are doing incredible. So there are companies like Carlyle, for example, that actually link preferential rates for venture debt that they give their portfolio companies, and companies that do well in terms of inclusion get money at better rates. There's a lot that companies can do in terms of incentivizing and urging an inclusion lens to be put on everything. And a lot of companies are doing this in India as well right now. So I think to answer your question of what can companies do, everything. If it is important to you, inclusion will be the lens through which you look at everything. If you're talking about one thing in your hiring, is your CSR aligned to it? is your communication aligned to it? Are you as senior leaders and everyone throughout walking the talk, right? So I think companies can be super, because inclusion is going to be, a key axis on which the future success of organization is going to depend in the next decade or so.
Yeah.
So the more you do, the more profitable it is for you in the future.
Yeah. Right. Another amazing example that you write about in your book, and it's all about how acceptance and awareness of families about LGBTQ is so important for this to be more accepted in India. And you talk about the lesbian girl and her experience.
I think Kusuma's story,
I think it's a great story. Again, people who want to know the story need to
read the book and Kusuma's amazing.
But I think it's an amazing story, and there again, so families will be able to help or not, LGBTQ people there in their journey. How can we as a corporate somehow help there, or families, corporates, it seems like a difficult journey.
No, it's not difficult at all. In fact, it's what I write in the book. I mean, I talk about incredible parents of queer people who have supported them. I talk about family-like structures that queer people have created for ourselves, often because our parents haven't supported us. So I talk about a range of possibilities in the book. But irrespective, I think that our organizations need to act what I call in loco parentis. So whether we have supportive parents at home or whether we don't, our organizations in India, especially and this part of the world, need to step up. Because in other parts of the world, again, I don't know how it is in Europe. I mean, it's different in other parts of the world. But one would imagine that in other parts of the world, you realize that you're queer, you come out at home first, your family accepts you or not. But by the time you come to the workplace, you're kind of there. In India, for a lot of people, I mean, you come to the workplace after giving a series of exams. 10th standard, 12th standard, JEE, CAT, whichever, MAT, FAT, whatever. You give a series of exams and then you come to the workplace. And essentially, if you make it to a place like AB InBev, you've worn blinkers because you've entered a very wide end of a funnel and you've come out of the narrow end. And everyone who comes here has come out of the narrow end, which means you've sacrificed a lot, including thinking about things like, what color is my favorite, or who do I love, or what is beauty, or what is truth. I mean, all these things. You have to just give that exam. You have to get 99.9 because your 99.6 cutoff is over, boss. So I think our workplaces have to be way more proactive. We have to do the work that our parents didn't do. We have to do the work that our colleges and schools didn't do. So we have to be loving. I'm not saying we have to be their family. We are not families of employees. We are professionals. But we have to, in our nurturing, be in loco parentis and give people the resources and support. So I think because for one thing, we have to give people knowledge. We have to give people a safe working environment. You have to tell people that, you be whoever you are, we are here to support you. We have to give people the courage and confidence they can use to, if they want to come out to their families at home. And families will accept more if they know, if I'm working at Godrej and my company likes me and my company sends these positive messages all the time. I can use this and go and tell mom, dad, and gay, and look, this big famous company is supporting me or whatever, I want you to come on. Much harder than if, the organization did not support.
So by building awareness within our company, those messages that we create, the platforms that we create, they can use at home.
They can use at home, they can use your network and support at home. You need to be the safe space for them. If people react badly at home, they need to know that they can come to office and say, people have reacted badly with me, what do I do? You need to be the safe haven for them. And you need to communicate that to your employees that we are there for you, come what may. So I think
that's a great point, something for us to think about how we.
And you need to bring in parents as well. So many organizations are talking to parents of queer employees, showcasing that to other employees, saying, look, here are parents who have accepted their queer child, and they're happy. What about you, right? You need to role model some of that as well. So
I think that's a good idea. On a yearly basis, we do family day. We bring the families in. Of course, now was over Zoom the last 2 years, but at
Yeah.
least we have this platform with the families.
Yeah.
Maybe a topic for next year to.
And what families are you showing in Family Day? Which families are speaking?
Yeah.
Is it only the heterosexual
Show
families that are
examples.
speaking in Family Day? Because then that's not. That's heterosexual families. I mean, it's not like, even at AB in Web, you must be having families of all kinds.
Yeah.
Which families are you showcasing?
So good. So let's talk about some of. We have a lot of benefits. I have a list here of the benefits, and you mentioned some of them already. We're on a journey. I think we have some. We're going to do many more. The question that we now have is: okay, great. We have new policies. We have benefits for queer people. How do I now measure that they're actually effective, and that I'm becoming a more inclusive company?
So there's multiple ways of measuring inclusion, numbers and targets is one, belonging scores is another, etc. And you can use, people are using AI, companies like Google and all use artificial intelligence in interesting ways. So I think you figure out with your team, what you want to measure, what you can measure, what you should measure. I think with regard to things like, LGBTQ specifically, it's different from even gender actually, what is male, what is female is, is now, gender is itself a spectrum, and most organizations are not measuring the entire spectrum. Most organizations are thinking of gender in a binary. But you can think of gender in a binary and say, you can measure some of it. With things like queerness, disability, and so many other aspects of diversity. It's more challenging to measure. What you should measure is, how can you are you creating a workplace where people are visibly thriving, where you are attracting more and more people who are confident enough to be themselves, and where referrals within that community are very powerful. Like if I'm gay and I have a happy experience, I will recommend it to my queer friends and say, hey, I'm thriving here, come join here. So you can measure some of this. But I would say for everyone listening, surely I think it's very important to invest in measurement, and you need to think about what you want to do and what you want to. But I think a lot of that comes later on. I think what you should invest in doing now is building infrastructures, including interesting and creative ways of what you want to measure and how. And also how you can, what are you already measuring and how are you cutting that data as well is also very, very interesting. Are you really looking at what you are measuring in simplistic terms? Are you digging deeper? So I think, all over the world also, inclusion is being measured in various ways. A lot of progressive companies worldwide, which were very fixated on numbers, especially with regard to gender, have now moved away from just numbers to other things, like belonging scores and things like that, and are moving to other creative ways, because these are all imperfect ways. Because with so many of these dimensions, you really don't know. And you can't force someone to reveal certain parts of themselves.
It's not a numbers game, no? It's more like a culture and how people are aware and accepting. But I think it's a field, and if you go and recruit at a place, are you getting enough queer people who come to talk to you and who are saying, I'm queer, I want to work at AB InBev? Is there, are you getting enough of that? I think that's also a good way of actually seeing that is this working. Good. I have a question again, so we're on this journey to become more diverse and inclusive here in our GCC. I think in terms of LGBTQ, we're still very early in that journey. We have some of the benefits, but we're not, let's say, that mature yet as we are. Maybe already a bit more on gender diversity. So I can imagine you must have some advice for the queer employees that we have, who are working in a company that is starting on that journey, right? What are some of the typical challenges that they might face, and do you have any advice for queer people working in an organization that is starting that LGBTQ journey?
So I think if you're queer, you don't have to come out. So I tell all queer people I talk to, coming out is actually a function of your context and the environment you are in, whether at home or in the workplace. So, but you can insist that your workplace is one in which queer people are treated equally. Whether you choose to reveal that aspect of yourself or not, you can actually say, I want to work for an inclusive workplace. You can avail of policies and their benefits without, you can tell your HR that, I would like the same-sex partnership, I would like my partner to be registered for these benefits, but I don't want my boss to know because I feel my boss is homophobic and things like that, right? So as a queer person, you should take all the rights that are offered. Coming out, whether you choose to come out or not, is again, think for yourself. You might be in a team which is homophobic, at which case coming out could have an adverse impact on your progression, and why would you want to do that? And so on. So, but you can urge for your company to have, to just be better, which means to hire more queer people, which means to work with community organizations, which means to sponsor queer, cultural and other kind of events, which means to indicate through senior leadership and other communication, why being LGBTQ matters. A good way is actually to be part of an employee resource group. Either help the creation of fund. In so many companies in India, there are employee resource groups are full of allies. And that's fine. Maybe some of the people who say they're allies are queer, maybe they're not, it doesn't matter. You can, through things like an ERG, advocate and create some of these. You want to create an atmosphere in which, queerness is safe and welcome. So that's what you do. But I think, don't feel that I think work with and help allies educate themselves as well. Often the burden of explaining things falls on queer people as well. So just point allies to the right places and directions, but help, let them do the learning themselves as well.
Very good. Maybe last question here. We talked a lot about actions that we can take as companies, employees, colleagues, etc. But I'm sure there's also a lot of unconscious bias still happening. The example I always give is that I wasn't personally aware of this one myself. Somebody mentioned to me last year, we go to top colleges because we say we want to have the best people in India, we want to hire top talent, so we go to the top tier colleges, tier 1 colleges, we go on day 1 and we hire the best talent in India. Till somebody told me and challenged me and said, there's top talent also in the tier 2, tier 3 college here around the corner. Right? They just didn't have the privilege to be able to go to the tier 1. Right? And we basically realized we're not being inclusive at all. And by the way, we can attract top talent also in other colleges. So now we go to several colleges, not just the tier 1. We also go to others. So it's kind of an unconscious bias. Somebody needs to kind of shake you up and say, man, hey, what are you doing? This doesn't make any sense. Are there any unconscious biases in the LGBTQ context that you have experienced that?
So I experience all the time, and people in the queer community experience all the time. The first is this idea of merit, and that queer people need to fit in, look, act like how in this box of merit that straight people kind of put, because a good employee looks and acts a particular way. Whereas queer people, we bring a lot of our experiences, background, context to the table, which is actually incredibly useful, which is not recognized because of that, right? So I think one thing would be to help for organizations, say whoever you're hiring from various spaces, what they bring with them is their merit. Their experiences add value. They will help you be more innovative. They will help you think differently. They will help you to think of a different target group. As consumers, there's so much. So I think one of that is certainly that people say, we will hire so and so, but it should be on merit. But what merit? Is it marks? Is it background? Is it experiences? So I think your thing with going to not top tier colleges is amazing. Because honestly, they're going to come here and do basic work for year 1 and year 2. You don't need a very skilled Excel sheet operator from IIM Ahmedabad to do the work that honestly, I don't know anyone who does great exciting work in year 1 and year 2 anywhere, in any company in India. You can have incredible talent from a very good college, which is not, and of course, no offense to all my IIMA friends listening to this, I'm sure you got in there because of a lot of hard work and merit. But honestly, other people can do what you do for less money, And so yeah, I mean, go out there and like, I think for those who are listening to the podcast, one IIM person just left the room. Oh, sensitive people, no? They are. Oh, another, no, you get from other colleges. See? No, so my thing to recruiters is that there's a wealth of opportunity out there.
Yeah.
If you can just look at what roles you want to fill, and you can just say that there are people out there who are incredibly talented all across. I mean, your aim is your organization should look like the world outside.
Yeah.
And it isn't. If 15% of the population is disabled in some way or the other, and you don't have even a smattering of disabled people, forget 15%. I mean, what are you missing out on?
Yeah.
So your role is to go to where the talent is, and the talent might not be at these top tier. The talent might be, not necessarily be on LinkedIn as well, looking at your job postings.
Yeah.
You have to find out. You have to build talent pipelines. So you have to work with schools and colleges. Like so many people in the US right now are building women in STEM or black women in STEM pipelines with colleges, saying that here is a scholarship, enter this, graduate, spend 2 years with me.
Yeah.
I'm saying, so you have to look at this structurally and systematically, and wherever you want to work, invest in building these pipelines.
Yeah.
I think it will be to your immense advantage 10 years down the line, where still, I mean, if you are AB and Bev and want to be the best, if you're building the pipeline now, the rewards of which you will reap 10 years later. 10 years later, there will still be performative companies in India. But think of where you will be then.
Yeah.
You'll have spent 10 years in understanding the landscape, building the pipeline, being authentically inclusive.
Yeah.
Think of the rewards you will reap.
Yeah.
So do the work now is my thing, and do comprehensive work.
Yeah. Great point. So, this is our podcast. So the last question I'm going to ask you is around, I wish my boss told me that.
Okay.
So what is that one lesson in your career that you would have wished your boss would have told you early on in your career?
So I've had actually incredible bosses in my life, and I've just been so grateful that almost all of them have been wonderful mentors. So Henry Jenkins, for example, at MIT, who was my thesis advisor and my boss at the project, really pushed me to think of my own experience as knowledge. And so the reason I write the way I do is because someone like Henry says, your background and experiences are very valid. So autoethnography is as valid a form of research and discourse as other things, right? So I've been very blessed to have incredible bosses who always supported me right from day one. I wish, though, all of them had told me to invest more in self-care, mental health, my own personal well-being, and to be able to find that one moment in a day where I shut off and just dig deeper in myself. It need not be something deep. It could be even shallow stuff. So what I've realized, what works for me at the end of the day is 2 to 4 pieces of dark chocolate and either Govinda movies or a Kapil Sharma show.
Belgian dark chocolate.
Well, yeah, sure. Belgian milk chocolate is better actually. Although, who has milk chocolate? Never mind. We won't get into that debate here. And white chocolate, so yeah. I mean, all you white chocolate lovers, really, it's not even chocolate. But God, and you're gonna get millions of emails after this. White chocolate lovers are gonna hate me after this. No, but whatever. I have
on a separate podcast
on
about
a separate
chocolate.
podcast.
As a Belgian, I know a lot about chocolate waffles and beer.
Dark chocolate. So
dark chocolate, all the way.
Belgian or otherwise.
Yeah.
With Kapil Sharma or Govinda. Old Govinda movies or the Kapil Sharma reruns. Because I like to tune off and be a little silly.
Yeah.
Whatever. It works. Yoga works for someone. Nature works for someone else. But I think that daily investment in your own self, where you have that me time, doing something you love, where you can go within.
Yeah.
And of course, focusing on things like mental health and other things, because your life and your career, it's a long marathon. And how do you invest in nurturing parts of yourself on a daily basis?
Yeah.
So I wish everyone listening finds out or connects to that person that they can nurture within.
Yeah.
And really focus on your own mental health, and whether that means in reading up or whether that means in seeking professional help or talking to a counselor or
sports
or meditation or whatever, but invest in that, because that takes you through the long haul.
There you go. Wise words of Parmesh Shahani.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Parmesh, for joining us. An incredible honor.
Thank you.
Amazing podcast, I think. Some good learnings, and for sure some things that we will implement in,
Thank you.
in the GCC next year. So
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot.
Thank you.